The Fort Erie Podcast with Brent Jones. Brent Jones starts now.
That is me. I'm Brent Jones. Hello and welcome. This is episode 74 of the Fort Erie Podcast, and it is Tuesday, November 14th, 2023. Thank you for joining me today. Lots to cover in this brand new episode. It's going to be jam-packed. I guess that's what I get for taking 2 weeks off from doing the show. I come back and there's a ton of stuff to cover. First off, I'm excited to announce that Arjun Kalia is going to be joining me on today's episode for a chat. If you aren't already familiar, Arjun took over ownership of Crafted 1885 on Dominion Road a couple years ago. He's going to be joining me today to talk about the restaurant, but he's also generously agreed to give away a $25 gift card to Crafted 1885. So one of you lucky listeners today is going to win this gift card. You'll find out how you can win coming up later. We'll also be covering some Fort Erie news today, some upcoming community events. I'll be playing your Byrd Box messages, of course, as always. And if you are new to the Fort Erie Podcast, let me just mention that the Byrd Box is the answering machine I have set up for this show. You can call in 24 hours a day. You can leave messages. You can squawk about anything you want. And then I share those messages right here on the Fort Erie Podcast. So that's all coming up today. But to kick off this episode, we're going to start things with, we'll say like a more serious story, something a bit more somber. I usually use this monologue time at the start of each episode for something lighthearted, something fun. Like we'll talk about how often your family orders pizza or lifestyles of famous Fort Erie celebrities. There was even one episode back in June. We talked about awful Father's Day gift ideas. But every now and again, I will use this monologue time at the start of the episode to share a more serious story, something that I think is more pressing that I should draw attention to. And the story I want to tell you today concerns our regional councillor, Tom Insinna. Now, in order for me to tell you this story properly, I first have to take you back about 6 episodes, back to episode number 68, which was released on September 19th. During the Byrd Box feature of that episode, I played a voicemail message that one of you local listeners left, and this voicemail is the starting point to this entire story. So let me start by playing this caller's message again for you right now.
Yeah, hi there. As I drive around town, I'm seeing an inordinate number of these three-wheeled vehicles driven by handicapped and elderly people. But lately, I'm seeing them driving in live lanes of traffic. And just last week, while turning left at Concession and Garrison, there was an elderly man in a three-wheeled vehicle in front of me, turning left and not wearing a helmet. And I've seen 4 today. One was on a sidewalk, which I guess is okay, but 3 in live lanes. They should be wearing helmets. My son is a Durham Regional Policeman, and he tells me it is law up there that any vehicle, 2-wheel or 3-wheel, that uses live lanes of traffic must have a helmet. And I'm wondering if you can find out, because I know what's going to happen. Somebody's going to get killed, and then there's going to be a big thing about it. So I'm wondering if you can find out what the heck's going on. Thanks.
So this local Fort Erie resident, this Fort Erie father, he calls into the show and he leaves this message to say he's concerned about folks riding electric scooters in live lanes of traffic without a helmet, which, I think is a pretty valid concern. We've all seen this happen around town, and there's no question that that's risky business. Now, if I'm being honest, I don't know a whole ton about traffic laws. I don't know what's currently on the books. I don't know what isn't. I don't ride an electric scooter myself. So what I did is I reached out to our regional councillor, Tom Insinna. I sent him an email to see if he could share some insights. I thought if anybody, any elected official here in our town is going to know what's on the books or what isn't regarding scooters operating in live lanes of traffic, it'll probably be Tom Insinna, or at the very least, he's going to have contacts at a regional level that could fill us in. And so I sent Tom an email, and within an hour of me reaching out, Tom sent an email back. And as a matter of fact, I actually shared his response with you guys. I shared it in that very same episode, number 68. Here's a little flashback of me sharing Tom's response with you back on September 19th in episode 68. So in response to this one, I sent an email to Tom Insinna, our regional councillor, to see if that's something the region might entertain. Tom replied really quickly. Here's a robot reading what he had to say.
Hi, Brent. I will look into this and get back to you. I will also ask the councillors on the police board to address this. Thanks for this. Once I hear back, I will call the Byrd Box. Respectfully, Tom.
That's amazing. What a great response from our regional councillor. I love Thomas not only says, hey, I'm going to look into this, but he also promises to respond by leaving a message on the Byrd Box. I think that's fantastic. I actually don't think I've had a politician at any level agree to call the Byrd Box. So there we go. That's something new for this show. Now, I already know that a lot of you remember this exchange because a lot of you are regular listeners. You never miss an episode. I know a lot of you remember this exchange because I've had probably half a dozen of you reach out since this episode was released to ask, hey, Brent, did you ever hear back from Tom? Did you ever get back to you? What'd he say? Did you ever leave a message? Blah, blah, blah. In short, no, nothing. Guys, I've heard nothing. I haven't heard a word from the guy. I haven't got any further response. And just for context, you might be thinking, okay, well, maybe he forgot Brent, maybe he just got busy okay. Okay, let me give you the full timeline, all right? Just so we're clear. Episode 68 came out on September 19th, as I said, but this original email exchange between Tom and I that I just shared with you, asking Tom for his insights, this email exchange actually happened 6 days before the episode was released. Remember, everything I do is pre-recorded, so this exchange with Tom by email actually happened on September 13th. The episode comes out September 19th, but I let some more time pass, and on September 26th, basically 2 weeks from when I sent the original email, I sent a follow-up email, and it reads, "Good afternoon, Tom. I hope you're well. I was just wondering if you might have any sort of update for listeners, and if so, if you might be able to call it in at 289-599-BYRD. That's the Byrd Box number, and I concluded that email with, thanks for your time. Have a great day. Smiley face." No response. So I let another 2.5 weeks pass. I sent another email. "Hi, Tom. Happy Friday. I'm sorry to be a pain, but do you have an update for listeners? I have folks asking, wondering if there's an update you can leave on the Byrd Box. Thanks for your time. Smiley face." Man, I love those smiley faces, eh? But anyway, this email, same thing, guys. No response. So I let another 2 weeks pass, okay? It's October 26th now. I decide to give Tom a call on his cell phone. I figure, hey, if he's not answering emails, let me give the guy a call. There's no answer, so I leave a voicemail. Here it is, by the way. Here's me calling Tom.
You have reached the voicemail box of
Tom Insinna.
At the tone, please record your message. When you are finished recording, you may hang up or press pound for more options.
Oh, hi, Tom. It's Brent Jones calling from the Fort Erie podcast. I hope you're well. Hey, I'm just following up. Back on September 13th, I brought a concern to you by email from a local resident, a listener of this show, just regarding mandating helmet usage for electric scooters in live lanes of traffic. I know you responded, less than an hour, sent me an email back, said you'd look into it, you'd leave a message with your findings on the Byrd Box, but, unfortunately, it's been quite some time, and that hasn't happened. I followed up again by email on September 26th and again on October 13th, but didn't get a response. So, look, I know you're a busy guy, but I think the hundreds of people who listen to the show would appreciate an update, if that's possible. Even if that update is just that you simply need more time, anything would be appreciated. So as you know, you can call the Byrd Box anytime, 289-599-2973. Anyway, thanks for your time, your consideration, Tom. I appreciate it. You have a great day, okay? Bye for now. Almost 3 weeks have gone by since I left this voicemail, and you guessed it, still no response. Now look, I'll be the first to admit no one in this town is obligated to speak with me, not even our elected officials. They don't have to come on the show. They don't have to return my calls. They don't have to engage with the Fort Erie podcast. I get that. But at the same time, I think engaging with this podcast is a good idea. I think it would be the right thing to do. I think saying that you will participate and then ignoring my follow-ups is the wrong thing to do. I mean, this show literally gets hundreds of local weekly listeners, and on the heels of us losing our weekly newspaper back in September, the Fort Erie Post, I would think our elected officials, like Tom, would be putting a focus on finding new channels to communicate with their constituents. Wouldn't you think? Now, to be fair to Tom, he does write a bi-weekly column for the Fort Erie Observer. Never misses an edition. It's called The Report from the Region with Tom Insinna. And as a matter of fact, I'm holding in my hand right now the October 26th edition of the Fort Erie Observer. That's Volume 5, Issue 4, and I'm on page 3. And you want to know what's funny? You know what else is right here on this very same page, page 3, right below Tom's column? There's an ad for the Fort Erie podcast right beneath this column. It's an ad to call the Byrd Box. It says, leave a message with your thoughts and opinions. Call in, squawk about anything you want so the whole town can hear. Maybe it's a hint, Tom. Take it. I mean, you certainly can't tell me you forgot to call into the show. Aside from my emails and my phone call, the reminder is right underneath your column. Oh, and sorry, I wanted to mention this too. My favorite part, Tom's byline after every report from the region. His byline reads, "As always, I can be reached at." He puts in his email address and says, "Thank you for your continued support." You got to be kidding me, dude. Like, you pick it. My experience, at least, is that you pick and choose which emails you respond to, and then you don't even do the things you say you're going to do in your response. So why bother encouraging readers to email you? It's the whole thing is silly. But anyway, back to my original point. No one in this town is obligated to engage with this show if they don't want to. I'm not going to hold anybody's feet to the fire, but in this particular case with Tom, the only reason I'm sinking my teeth into this one is because he committed in writing that he would get answers for listeners of this show, and he did not do that. And some of you listening right now, I'm sure you're fans of Tom. You may have even voted for him. As a matter of fact, I voted for him twice, both times he ran, 2018 and 2022. So maybe you're thinking that I'm just being petty or unnecessarily harsh, that I've got some kind of personal vendetta against Tom, and that's why I'm putting him on blast. But that isn't it at all. I don't know Tom. He might be the kindest, most generous, most competent man in all of the region. I have no idea. Don't know the guy. I've never had an interaction with him outside of this. So this is not some kind of petty personal vendetta I've got against the guy. I couldn't care less. This is an issue of holding elected public officials accountable to the things they tell us they're going to do, which should not be a strange concept. Look, if Tom had simply just dropped me a line, replied to one of my emails and said, "Hey, Brent, I got super busy. I'll get to it, or I'll look at this next year. Hey, Brent, I reconsidered, and unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to comment on this," then fine. At least I would have some kind of an answer. I'd have something to share with listeners. And I wouldn't be making an issue out of this right now. But to say you will do something for the show, then not do it, and then outright ghost me when I try following up, not once, not twice, but 3 times? No, sir, that is not okay. That's not okay. And I have no problem telling you that. That's not okay. Especially when you know there were hundreds of Fort Erie podcast listeners waiting for your response. And I also think this kind of behavior is a bit strange, if I can call it that, for a guy who campaigned twice on the slogan honesty, integrity, and transparency. He got those 3 words printed on signs and t-shirts. It's on his website. It's on his Facebook page. I don't know. Maybe you might want to work on the honest part, Tom. You know, like for a guy who's worked in law enforcement since the 1980s, you think you'd know the difference between right and wrong. So in conclusion, Tom, Mr. Insinna, Mr. Regional Councillor, if you're listening, and I have a funny feeling you are, here's the thing, man. Here's the deal. I don't hold grudges. You are still welcome to call the Byrd Box with your findings at any time, and I will honestly and fairly play your message for listeners to hear. Anything you share with me at this point, I'll share with listeners, and I'll share it with the very same honesty, integrity, and transparency that you claim to deliver. I will tell listeners if and when I do ever get a response from you. But you know what might be even better? I'm going to extend an invite to you, sir. I'd be more than happy to have you come on this show as a guest. Again, like I said, I don't hold grudges. We could not only talk about mandating helmet use for electric scooters and live lanes of traffic, but we could talk about all sorts of things that I'm sure folks in this town would love to hear about. We could talk about possible plans for regional amalgamation, because that's on a lot of people's minds right now. We could talk about what that would look like for our town. We could talk about upcoming changes to the regional recycling program and what that's going to look like for our town. I mean, if you have time, we could even talk about one of your many campaign promises. Like here's one. Back in 2018, you promised our town affordable housing. Boy, that one's funny in the rearview mirror, isn't it? But this is a quote right from your website. Back in 2018, it says, "I will work with public and private sector groups to combat this ever-increasing problem here in Fort Erie." And of course, since you were first elected, Tom, rent and mortgage payments have doubled here in the town of Fort Erie. But I'm sure you'd tell us that isn't your fault, right? Out of your control. We could also talk, though, about one of your 2022 campaign promises, and I'm quoting right here from your Facebook page. You say here you are going to be demanding Fort Erie urgent care remain open. Wow. How'd that one work out, Tom? Look, as I said earlier, I voted twice for Tom, but he would not have my vote for re-election today. Not after this. I mean, if he can't keep a small promise, like calling into this show with answers he told us he'd get for us, how can any of us trust him to tackle the real issues?
News on the Fort Erie Podcast.
Lots of stuff coming up in the month of November, so I'm going to be covering community events later in today's episode. Right now, let's get into some news headlines. Let's start off with what's making some positive news here in our town. Earlier this year, I reported that Air Canada's En Route magazine had named Rizzo's House of Parm in Crystal Beach as one of Canada's top new restaurants. Rizzo's, of course, is owned and operated by celebrity chef and local hometown hero Matty Matheson. The final En Route rankings just came out earlier this month, and Rizzo's took the number 4 spot nationally. Congrats to Maddie and staff. The Crystal Ridge Dream Center is offering Christmas help in the form of a toy drive. Registration is going on from now until December 6th. If you're going to need a little help putting something under the Christmas tree this year, you can get more info by emailing crdreamcenter@gmail.com. And later in today's episode, I'll be sharing some other local nonprofits offering Christmas assistance this year. More than 4,000 residents have signed a petition saying they are concerned about the reduction in hours at both the Fort Erie and Port Colborne urgent care centers. Now, call me a bit of a pessimist, but other petitions and referendums like this one have come before it. So there's lots of well-meaning people lending their signature to this petition, I'm sure, but I'm just not totally convinced that it's going to have much of an impact. But hey, I would love to be proven wrong. At the start of the month, a 17-year-old impaired driver was arrested and charged following a serious single-vehicle collision that left one person in life-threatening condition. Niagara police say they were called around 1 o'clock in the morning to Dominion Road between Craft and Rose Avenue for reports of a serious collision. There were 3 what I'm going to call kids in the car, joyriding. Sounds like they were the only ones to be injured after the vehicle struck a tree. Niagara Regional Police are on the hunt for a fuel thief who is believed to have committed 7 fuel thefts between July 29th and November 7th. These fuel thefts happened all across Niagara region, but including right here in the town of Fort Erie. The resulting financial loss for the gas stations victimized was $949. The suspect is also switching back and forth between stolen license plates on a blue BMW X5 SUV. The suspect is described as a white male, 40 to 50 years old, 5'8" to 5'10", varying hairstyles, but most recently had a shaved head, tattoos on both calves. Anyone with information is being asked to contact the investigating officer by calling our police at 905-688-4111, press option 3 and enter extension 100-9684. If you're wondering what that awful smell is at the E.J. Freeland Fitness Center, the former YMCA, James Kulik writes in his latest column for Pelham today that the squash courts are being rented out as storage for junior hockey gear. Now, I can't help but notice this when my daughter has swim lessons at the Boys and Girls Club. The entire building does in fact smell like filthy hockey gear. It's disgusting. The smell is unmistakable, and now we know why. And in a story you can't make up, earlier this month, a vehicle struck a deer on the QEW near Lions Creek Road. That deer flew across the highway to the opposite side of the highway, where it was again struck by a Fort Erie resident heading in the opposite direction. There were no serious injuries reported, aside from the deer, I assume, but emergency vehicles did respond. Just a quick reminder, listeners, deer are on the move at this time of year, so please be careful in your travels, especially at dusk. Cost of living in Niagara region has resulted in a 2.8% increase in the living wage needed for people to make ends meet. That's the biggest single year increase since the year 2020. The current living wage, not just specific to the town of Fort Erie, but across all of Niagara region, is estimated to be $20.38 per hour, which, as we know, a lot of folks are not making that. There are doctors and nurse practitioners, and a bit of good news, who are accepting patients right now in Ridgeway and Stevensville. If you want to complete the online intake form, head on over to snfho.ca. And lastly, I became aware last week of a petition on change.org titled Save Our Library Programs. Anyone who knows me or has listened to this show for some time knows that I have a soft spot for Fort Erie Public Library, and this petition is exactly in reference to our local library. At the time I'm recording this news bit, the petition already has over 500 signatures. The description on this petition makes some pretty serious allegations, some pretty hefty accusations, including mismanagement of funds by the library's board, failure to comply with the Public Library Act, failure to furnish documents under the Freedom of Information and Privacy Act. So what I did is I reached out to the library's new CEO, Shelley Hebert, back on November 6th. I reached out for comment, but at this time, I haven't received a response.
Fort Erie Questions and Answers, based on the Facebook group by the same name.
This is Fort Erie Questions and Answers. It's the part of the show where I go through the Facebook group by the same name, Fort Erie Questions and Answers. I pick out any questions and answers that I thought were especially interesting, useful, or helpful. Let's start with this one here. Maria asks, what's the new coffee place that is replacing Green Apple Coffee on Jarvis Street? The building Maria's talking about here, of course, was Green Apple Coffee, and then there was a stint in there where it was just abandoned for a number of years. Before that, when I moved to town, it was Coffee Culture. The correct answer in the comments is that it's not a new coffee shop going in there at all. It's actually the Manic Maker from just a little farther up Jarvis Street. They produce and sell freeze-dried candy. You might recall that Dana Nadeau was actually a previous guest on the Fort Erie podcast. So it's the Manic Maker, just moving down the street, taking over that larger spot. As a matter of fact, at the time you're listening this, the Manic Maker might have already finished their move over there. They might be open for business in their new location. I'm not totally sure, but if not, they're coming soon. Judy says she's looking for a recipe for turkey fricassee, and I had to use Google pronunciation here to find out it's pronounced fricassee. I was going to say fricasse, but anyway, Judy says she's looking for a recipe for turkey fricassee. The best comment I saw here was Google is your best friend. Yeah, I tend to agree. Judy, if you're looking for a recipe, the place to do it is probably search on Google, not drop a comment on Fort Erie Questions and Answers. Another person recommended Pinterest for recipes, and I understand that's popular. A lot of people like to get their recipes off Pinterest. I'm just not one of those people. Anyway, Hannah says, I want to order something which ships for free in the United States, but to Canada, it would be $80 plus taxes and duty. I was wondering if there was some way around this, any way to have it delivered to a pickup point in Buffalo. And the correct answer, which came up a bunch of times in the comments here, was yes. And I've done this myself personally. If you can get a better deal on shipping or on price by having it shipped within the United States, you can actually buy online, have your item shipped to a UPS or like a FedEx location in Buffalo, drive over the border and go pick it up. You just kind of have to show your ID and show that your name matches what's on the package. So track it online. Once you know it's been delivered to UPS or FedEx, you go show your ID, you pick it up, you can bring it back across the border. But just bear in mind, you might still get hit with duty at the border. It might not end up saving you all that much on shipping if they make you pay duty on whatever item you just purchased. And don't ever lie to the people at the border. It's not worth it if you get caught. Just tell them what you have and tell them what it cost. Now, most of the time when I've done this historically, it's been not so much to save on shipping costs. It's been when an item isn't shipped to Canada, you can buy online and they will only ship within the continental United States. Then it just makes more sense to put in, my name and then my address as UPS or FedEx, have it shipped there and go pick it up. Other people in the comments mentioned that you can get a PO box in Buffalo as well. And of course, that is an option. One of the perks of living in a border town. Kristen asks, does anyone know of beginner woodworking workshops in the area for adults? And there was only one local response. A bunch of people recommended things outside of our town. The only local response came from a friend of the show, Betty Talbot, who says you could check with Connie Sharon at the Stevensville Conservation Club. They used to have a wood carving club there. Not sure if it's still operating, but she would know. And yeah, I second that. I know for sure there used to be wood carving, that type of thing at the Conservation Club. So reach out to Connie and see if she can help you with that. Cindy asks, what group is best to post a pet for sale? I know a lot of groups don't allow this. All right, so let's get into this one. Breaking down the comments and the original poster's replies, what she's actually talking about is a pair of birds, a pair of budgies that she's trying to sell. And she mentions that a lot of groups, as in Facebook groups, don't allow this. Well, it's not just Facebook groups, Cindy. It's Facebook policy in general that you can't go sell live animals on Facebook. But I think the better question here, and a number of people did ask you this in the comments, why are you selling budgies? I get that maybe you got a pair of budgies, you brought them home, you decided they're not the right fit for your household, you don't have the time to look after them, but wouldn't it be more important at this point? You got these things as pets. Wouldn't it be more important to make sure they go to a good home rather than just trying to get a few bucks back? Because let's be honest, it's not like budgies are expensive to begin with in the first place. That's not like an expensive animal you've purchased here. You've bought 2 budgies. So a person in the comments says, if you are looking to rehome a bird, I have multiple groups I can recommend. Because yeah, there are quite a few groups that will help to rehome birds or take in birds. And Cindy, of course, the original poster replies, no, I'm just looking to sell 2 budgies. Okay, well, there's our answer. Doesn't care about rehoming them properly, just wants a refund. The only answer here, the only place that I'm aware of online, and it did come up in the comments several times, where you can sell a live animal, sell a pet, is Kijiji. So there you go, Cindy. Go sell your pair of budgies on Kijiji.
It's Fort Erie's answering machine, the Byrd Box.
Welcome to the Byrd Box. It's Fort Erie's answering machine. You can call in 24 hours a day. You can squawk about anything you like, and I'll play your messages right here on the Fort Erie podcast. Let's start with a bit of an update message. The previous episode, number 73, last episode, a local caller called into the show regarding what he called a mess on the QEW, asking if there were any listeners, anybody listening who might be associated with EFIG, who might know how to get a hold of EFIG, to ask them to come pick up their signs and pylons now that the construction work was complete. Just as a refresher, here's that message again.
Just wondering if any of the listeners maybe know somebody who works for EPIC could get them to remove their construction signs. There's still a lane reduction sign 300 meters ahead, pylons, and all kinds of signs. If it wasn't bad enough, we had to wait 3+ years for this construction to finish, and we had to weather the worst potholes and dips that you can find on the highway. But still, they haven't cleaned up their mess. How long is it going to take? They're just waiting for another couple of years.
Well, it turns out it didn't take very long. Episode 73 came out on October 24th, and this same caller called back into the show that very same day, October 24th, with an update. Here's his update.
Hey, just letting you know that your Byrd Box worked. FH cleaned up their signs the same day that you aired your podcast about that. So you reached somebody.
Well, that's great. I'm glad they cleaned up. I'm sure it was in their plan all along to come back and get their pylons, sir. I mean, thank you for giving me credit, but I don't know if this show had anything to do with EFIG coming back, picking up their stuff. But it is nice to know that, some listeners of the 40 Re podcast think that I have that kind of influence. That's kind of nice. But anyway, next, we got a caller who's unhappy about the noise that motorcycles make. And if I'm correct, I don't think this is the first time we've got a call about motorcycles this year. Here it is.
Nothing seems to ever be done about the noise motorcycles make, as in that's perfectly okay. But if I were to drive around with my car having a hole in the muffler, I would risk getting a ticket. Well, my car with a hole in the muffler wouldn't be any louder than a motorcycle. So I'd like to know where the fairness is in that.
Well, I mean, I can't really comment on the fairness part of it, but the good news, sir, it's almost winter. I don't think you'll have to contend with too many more motorcycles on the road for the balance of the year. And look, if I'm being really honest, motorcycle noise, it doesn't really bother me. I couldn't care less, because usually folks out riding motorcycles are usually out riding recreationally. They're having a good time. They're with their friends. There's a social piece to it. So that doesn't really bother me. And I don't know too many people. I'm sure they exist. I just don't know anybody who uses a motorcycle as a main method of transportation. So it's largely a recreational thing, but in a country that's covered in snow, 10 months a year, let's say, I don't get too worried about some people getting together on a Sunday afternoon to go for a ride. And it's just kind of the nature of the beast, with a bike. I mean, you're talking about shorter exhaust. There's nothing contained under a hood. It's going to make more noise. What gets under my skin is, I'm here at the office on Garrison Road. What gets under my skin is the souped up, old Honda Civics I see flying down the Garrison Speedway, who for whatever reason have decided to install exhaust kits so they could make their 1990s piece of scrap metal sound even junkier than it already is. The ones I'm talking about that accelerate up the road. They're flying like a bat out of hell, and this thing is making such a crazy amount of noise. It's almost ear piercing. Why would anybody want to do that to their car? I don't understand. Buy a new car, man. Don't make the old one sound worse than it already is. But just lastly, I'm going to play a message we got here from a guy who's looking for input from a realtor, but just probably not the kind of input that you'd expect. Here we go.
I was just thinking about ways of asking out my female realtor friend, and I was going to be like, "Hey girl, is your name Mortgage? Because you've got my interest." I'm just looking for your thoughts and feedback on my pickup line.
My thoughts, huh? So first off, dude, that's probably the worst pickup line I've ever heard in my life. I wouldn't recommend using that one. Maybe go back to the drawing board. But second, and this might be the most important part, okay? If you want to try asking out, as you call a female realtor friend of yours, okay, this is somebody you know. Maybe you play volleyball together. Maybe you volunteer together at the SPCA, something like that. That's fine, okay? No problem with that. But please don't be one of those dudes who calls female realtors because they saw them on a billboard or a for sale sign or a bus stop or whatever. That's gross. And, speaking with women in this profession, I've heard a lot of stories. They have to contend with this kind of nonsense all the time. Like I've talked to female realtors who are afraid to put their photo on their marketing, whether it's their for sale sign or whatever. They don't want to put their cell phone number on certain printed collateral, because otherwise they get calls and texts from creeps, like from weirdos. And the same thing happens on social media through DMs. Dudes start sending pics of their wiener and stuff. And it's to the point that here in Niagara, we use Sentry Lock for our lock boxes, but it comes with an app on your phone, and agents can set up the app so that they get like an alert every 2 minutes. And if they don't check in every 2 minutes at a showing, all of their emergency contacts are notified. Like it's pretty sad that we have that technology in place. But there's certainly been more than one case of harassment, particularly against female realtors here in Niagara in the past few years. If you think about it, these ladies are taking often strangers that they maybe haven't met before into a home that is vacant. And, the strange part is when we ask a new client, somebody we don't know, for ID, for more info, hey, I want to verify who you are, folks balk like we have no business knowing their name or address. And it's like, no, dude, I'm sorry, male, female, realtor, otherwise, it doesn't really matter. I need to know who you are before I start taking you into people's homes before, I think it's just good common sense. So yeah, anyway, dude, to your call, your pickup line sucks. Don't use it. Okay. But if you want to approach a female realtor and ask her out on a date, just be respectful about it. Don't be gross. Don't be that guy. Okay. Anyway, anything you heard today on the show you want to respond to, anything you see around town, anything you want to get off your chest, call the Byrd Box, 289-599-BYRD. That's 289-599-2973. Leave a message.
Have something you want to squawk about? Let the whole town know what's on your mind. Call the Byrd Box at 289-599-2973. That's 289-599-BYRD.
All right, joining me on the phone right now, I'm speaking with Arjun Kalia from Crafted 1885 on Dominion Road. Arjun, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Brent. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for making time for this.
Thanks for having me over here.
Yeah, you bet. So I wanted to start with this. I mean, I think some folks around town know this story. I mean, back in 2020, Andrew and Sarah Kobe opened up Crafted 1885. And you think about, boy, what a tough time to get going in the restaurant business, in 2020. But nonetheless, I wanted to start for the benefit of listeners. When did you take over Crafted and sort of how did that come about?
So we moved with my family. I moved in Fort Erie in 2020. And I was working in Niagara Falls at that time. And I was working for a year, and then I saw this listing online around 2021. So I had to make a business plan to the bank because it was a little hard because all the restaurants were closing. So it was hard to get the business loan at that time.
Sure.
So I made a business plan, and after that, after like a couple of months, I had to go back and forth with the bank, and I got approved for a small business loan. And in the meantime, in pandemic, I was working on my menu. Like I was designing my menu, and then I came across this restaurant, and it was my menu that I was creating and the menu that Andrew had created. It was like a bit similar, so I wanted to work on that, and then I wanted to just go for it. So I bought this restaurant in July 2021.
But you've been in the restaurant industry for some time. Is that right?
Yeah. So I've done my 7 years of culinary. So I did 4 years of graduation, and then I did like 3 years of post-graduation in culinary from Merritt College. And then I was working with a couple of like franchise restaurants. I was managing at the time I got this restaurant, I was managing 7 restaurants in Ontario.
Wow. So that experience, I have to think, helps quite a bit.
It does, but it's just managing a couple of restaurants, starting your own business is totally different. But it did help me a lot, like running all those businesses.
Well, I have to commend you because, the advertising, the marketing that I've seen around town, I think you're doing a great job. I mean, certainly getting the Crafted brand out there.
Yeah, when I got the restaurant, as our quality of food, our service, just everything is good. Most of the people, when I used to talk to them, and they used to say, "Oh, crafted, we have never heard about crafted 1885." So I was like, I have to do something about it. So I started advertising this year. I started putting billboards up and started putting coupons in the mail, and I started radio ads as well. So they're working out pretty good.
For people who haven't been in, can you tell us about the menu? You know, what's on the menu? What are some of your specials? What are some of the most popular items?
So our Philly steak is one of the most popular menu on the popular thing on the menu, and buffalo chicken sub and buffalo chicken poutine and our smoked brisket burgers. They're the most popular things on the menu right now. We do like hand cut fries, so that's one of our things. People love our French fries, and the poutine is top seller. So we do like 16 or 17 liters of gravy every day. In summer, we used to do it. So people love our poutine and fries.
And do you have any regular specials?
Oh yeah, for this year we just got a liquor license, so we are promoting beer and burger special and wings and fries and beer special. So we've got a smoked biscuit burger, hand cut fries, and choice of beer or cooler for just $16.50, and then we've got a pound of wings, hand cut fry, choice of beer and cooler for $17.50 throughout this year going on.
That is a pretty good deal, my friend. Most of the traffic coming through there. Do you find it's mostly people dining in? Is it people taking out? What's most of the business?
When we bought the restaurant, it was just I'd say 90% takeout thing only. So I've done a little bit improvement. We just got a patio this year, so I think it's still like 60% takeout because people didn't being used to taking out, but now they're because we got I did some renovation work with the patio, and we do like weekly live music as well. Or now it's like monthly live music that we do, so people do sit in and enjoy the food, and they have a couple of drinks now. But yeah, it was mainly like takeout. Now it's just takeout and dine-in as well, and got a couple of delivery companies like Skip and DoorDash.
Well, what is the response been, if I may ask? Because one of my observations about Crafted 1885 is that, you know, you're surrounded by a pretty substantial population, you know, being in Crescent Park. I mean, there's that critical mass there certainly to support the business, but at the same time, the location on Dominion, it's a little bit off the beaten path. So, I mean, does that hurt you at all, or do you find people are willing to make the trek?
It's pros and cons. Like, it would have been better if it was on Garrison, but on the other hand, people over here, like at Crescent Park, they absolutely love this restaurant. Like, I get a great support from people throughout the entire Fort area. Great people over here, but Crescent Park especially over here because there's no restaurant in Crescent Park. Like just the Crescent Park area right now. So people come and I've got regulars coming in every day, and they have like the specials. If this restaurant would have been in Garrison Road, like on the Garrison Road, I've gotten more foot traffic. But being on like Crescent Park area, it's a little bit tough. But if you give good food and like great service, people do come to you. So, and the great community is very supportive. So that's what I've really great out here. No complaints at all.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, because I think you mentioned you relocated to Fort Erie. What was it, back in 2020? Is that right?
2020, yeah. I relocated back in 2020. So we were looking for a house in 2020. I just had a baby at that time, and then we were living in Hamilton, like Brampton. And then we moved over because I was from Niagara Falls, my wife from Brampton. So we started looking house in Niagara Falls and Fort A. And then we moved to Fort A, and I absolutely love it over here. It's very nice, very peaceful.
Well, I couldn't agree more. I mean, my wife and I relocated 9 years ago from North York, and I mean, we love the area, and you'll certainly find that a little bit of legwork sometimes to advertise something new and different. Once you find people in our small town embrace you, I mean, they take you in, and it's nice to hear you've got, you already got regulars coming back. I mean, that's got to feel good.
Yeah, it was pretty nice. It just had like in 2020, once I opened in 2021, we were doing well. So exactly after 1 year when I bought the restaurant, so somebody drove into the restaurant, and then because of that, it was structural damage to the building, and I wasn't allowed to operate. So we were closed for the renovation for like 3 months.
Yeah, and just to clarify for listeners, we're not talking about drive-through here. We're talking about literally drove into the restaurant. This was
into the restaurant. Yeah.
This was an impaired driver, wasn't it?
Yes. He was an impaired driver. Yeah.
Jeez. Well, thank God. I mean, nobody was hurt, I assume.
No, it was early in like 7 a.m, so nobody was in the restaurant at that time. Usually, I do my prep. I start my prep book around that time, but I was a little late that day.
So you pulled up to the restaurant to start your prep work, and you noticed there was a big gaping hole in the side of the building?
No. So one of my employees, he just lived around Pleasant Park, so he texted me. So somebody drove into the restaurant. I was like, how bad it could be.
Oh, God.
So I went there. I went from inside, and I saw it, like from the back door. I saw it. It wasn't much. Like the damage wasn't much because I could see it. Like it was just a couple of like a little dent over there, but the car went through one of the supporting beams, right?
Wow. Well, now that you're back open, you're fully in operation, everything is humming along. What are your hours?
So we are open 7 days a week now from 11 till 9.
11 to 9. You mentioned for people who want to order delivery, even they could use apps like Skip the Dishes, for example.
We've got our we're actually working on our website. We're renewing it. You can place an order online at crafted.ca or we are online at Skip the Dishes or DoorDash.
Where can people find you on social?
Instagram. We're on Facebook as well. Just search for Crafted 1885 and you'll see it. Yeah.
I wanted to kind of wrap up with this because I teased at the start of today's episode that you were generous enough to offer listeners the chance to win a $25 gift card to redeem at Crafted. And, what you and I decided on before we started recording this conversation was to create a little contest for listeners to call the Byrd Box, 289-599-2973, and leave a message. First person to leave a message with the magic word is going to win this gift card that they can pick up right from you. The only question is, what's the magic word going to be, Arjun? I'm going to let you choose. What is the magic word they have to put on the Byrd Box?
Let's see. I think, Brent, we should keep it simple. Let's say Crafted 1885. How about that?
That's the assignment, folks. Listeners, call 289-599-BYRD, BYRD. Leave a voicemail. Say Crafted 1885. I will get back in touch with you and make sure that you get hooked up with your gift card. Does that make sense, right, Arjun?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay. Anything else you want to share with listeners before we wrap up?
Thanks for all the support. Keep coming to Crafted 1885. We'll see you guys soon then.
Community events coming up in Fort Erie.
There's a ton of stuff going on in our town between now and the end of the month, so let's get right into some community events. Coming up today, Tuesday, November 14th, this is the kickoff of Trailside Bar and Grill's annual toy drive. You can stop by the restaurant Ridgeway, drop off a new unwrapped toy in their bin if you are able to. Happening tomorrow, Wednesday, November 15th, there's going to be a War of 1812 presentation at the Fort Erie Public Library. That's the Crystal Ridge branch. All of this will be presented by Sharon Dell. Admission is free. All are welcome, and this runs from 6 until 8 p.m. Thursday, November 16th at 10 a.m., you can catch a community pop-up produce market sponsored by United Way at the Crystal Ridge Community Church at 241 Elmwood Avenue. It does say here that the market is cash only. Also happening on Thursdays, all Thursdays going forward, Left of Central Board Game Cafe on Jarvis Street now has a weekly chess club. There's no cover charge, and any experience level is okay to attend. This happens every Thursday starting at 6:30 p.m. Friday, November 17th, Niagara's Mobile Closet is going to be set up at Job Gym. That's at 469 Central Avenue from 12 until 2. There'll be free clothing shopping for those in need. Also happening on Friday at 6 p.m. Be sure to head to downtown Ridgeway, the Village Square Square for Christmas tree lighting and children's choirs performing from both St. George and John Brant schools. And also this Friday, it is the first day of the drive-through Safari Lights show at Safari Niagara. You can book online for this. It runs through January 7th. Saturday, November 18th, don't miss the Santa Claus Parade in the North End. There's a party going on Jarvis Street starting at 4 o'clock. The parade gets going at 5. At 5:30 p.m., catch the Christmas Around the World Dinner and Dance. This is happening at the Fort Erie Leisureplex, brought to you by Fort Erie Community Living. All kinds of stuff, photo booth there, costume prizes, raffles, door prizes, and more. On Tuesday, November 21st, the Fort Erie Conservation Club is going to be hosting a cabbage roll dinner. There is no takeout available. You got to dine in. It's $16 per person or $10 for a child under 10, and you can attend this cabbage roll dinner between 4 and 6 p.m. Thursday, November 23rd, the Rotary Club of Fort Erie is going to be hosting a Name That Tune event. For more information, you can contact my fellow realtors, Dave and Kathy Clune, and this is running from 2 until 4 p.m. Friday, November 24th, the Fort Erie Optimists are presenting their 19th annual Christmas Fantasyland. This is going on at Optimus Hall on Gilmore Road from 5 until 8 p.m. You get to visit with Santa, decorate cookies with Mrs. Claus and the elves, play some games. You're asked to bring non-perishable food items for cope. Then on Saturday, November 25th, catch the Christmas Craft and Vendor Sale at the Fort Erie Legion happening from 9 until 2. Over 20 vendors will be in attendance. Monday, November 27th, catch Monday Night at the Movies. This is, of course, at Greater Fort Erie Secondary School, the Meridian Center for the Arts, brought to you in partnership with the Toronto International Film Festival. The show gets going at 7 o'clock and tickets are available at the door. And then lastly, I'll mention that on Tuesday, November 28th, the South Niagara Chamber of Commerce is hosting their holiday networking event at the Commercial Roadhouse from 5 until 7 p.m. Again, be sure to bring non-perishable food items. They will be donated to Project Share.
Fort Erie Real Estate with Brent Jones, your friendly local realtor with RE/MAX Niagara Realty.
Well, October 25th came and went, and the Bank of Canada decided to hold interest rates steady. Bit of good news for some people. There were economists projecting that there would be an increase. Others thought a decrease might be in order, possible at the very least, since inflation clocked in at 3.8% in September, which means moving in the right direction. But for today's real estate feature, I don't really want to dive into the numbers, the percentages. I want to address the projections themselves. That's what I want to talk about, because I've seen this huge influx online of realtors, mortgage agents, economists, journalists, all sorts, posting their estimates that interest rates will begin to come down by mid-2024, by the middle of next year. And I'm going to go ahead and call bullshit. I'm not saying these interest rates, like our interest rates, won't come down in 8 to 10 months' time. They could, they very well might. But what I am saying is that no one knows for sure. The story I keep hearing realtors tell right now is they're advising buyers to say, hey, it's a buyer's market. Homes are sitting right now. You have more power at the negotiation table. Prices are trending downward. Buy now, buy low, take a 1-year term on your mortgage. And at this time next year, not only did you buy low, but you can renew your mortgage at a much lower rate. And what I'm saying over here, and maybe I'm the only one saying it, screaming it as loud as anybody can hear, anyone who tells you they know for sure what is going to happen 12 months from now is selling you snake oil. They don't know. They don't know. And they're advising you to make life-altering decisions based on information they can't substantiate, and they don't know because they don't have a crystal ball. I'll give you some examples. This is not just old man shakes his fist at the cloud. Let me give you some data here, okay? We'll take a trip back down memory lane. Who remembers the early days of the COVID-19 pandemic? I'm talking like March, April, May of 2020. Who remembers? What did all of the so-called experts tell us back then? Again, realtors, bankers, economists, politicians. Okay, what did they tell us? They said you can expect massive drops in housing prices, and residential real estate prices are going to plummet in response to the pandemic. How silly does that sound now in the rearview mirror? Even the CMHC, the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, was singing the song. This is an article they published in May of 2020. I'm going to just kind of read a small piece of it to you here. It goes, large declines in employment and household disposable income will cause large reductions in demand for existing homes in 2020. Listings will fall in response to weaker demand, placing significant downward pressure on existing home sales. Our forecasts indicate that the average MLS price will decline by 9 to 18% from its pre-COVID level. Prices will begin to recover in the first half of 2021. So they forecasted at the start of the pandemic that prices would drop in 2020 by 9 to 18%. And then meanwhile, what actually happened? prices went up in Ontario by something like 29% between March 2020 and March 2021. How do you get it that wrong? Decrease of 18% versus increase of 29%. And then thinking about going into 2022, what was the forecast then? What were the predictions? What were the experts all telling us? Yeah, going into 2022, after record-breaking increases, even right here in Niagara, we were seeing estimates from, again, realtors, mortgage agents, economists, all the so-called experts. Hey, we won't see such aggressive growth in 2022, but we still expect further increases to housing prices of 11 to 13% going into 2022. And do you remember what happened, dear listener? March of 2022, the Bank of Canada announced its first of several interest rate hikes for the year. In fact, by the end of 2022, prices, like the price for a residential home across Ontario, the median residential price across 22 ITSO boards in Ontario declined by 26 to 27%. So again, increase of 13%, projected, actual results, decline of 27%. How do you get it this wrong? How do you get it that wrong? And how are people expected to make such critical life decisions based on such bad information that gets spread so far and wide? Look, I mean, just anecdotally, I'm almost 40 years old. I've been hearing doomsday predictions about our real estate market for as long as I can remember, ever since I was a small child. I'm sure it was going on long before that as well. Things like, oh, it's a bubble, the Canadian housing bubble, it's going to burst, everything's going to come crashing down, we're going to be in economic ruin. I'm still waiting for all these predictions to come true. When exactly are all of these misleading doomsday headlines, when are they going to come true? I think the thrust of this real estate feature, of what I'm sharing with you today, is stop believing the nonsense that you read in the news. Stop believing predictions and projections going out 1, 2, 3 years. I mean, stop believing the realtors who tell you what's in their 12 to 24 month outlook, what's in their crystal ball. Look, I'm registered under the Real Estate Business and Brokers Act just like everybody else. They never gave me a crystal ball when I got registered. I don't know if these other agents, where they got theirs. I think what happens is a lot of agents read articles from their favorite economists or whatever, and then they take whatever that person's prediction was, and it becomes their fact, their truth that they can't wait to go share with potential buyers and sellers. They read articles like this. I've got pulled up here from Reuters. This article features our fearless leader, Mr. Justin Trudeau, the man who believes budgets balance themselves. He was quoted in Reuters back in September. And the article goes like this. It says, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau expects interest rates are going to start coming down by the middle of next year, in line with recent Reuters poll estimates. Wow. Reuters and the Prime Minister agree. That means it's going to happen for sure. I mean, our Prime Minister, wasn't this the guy who said interest rates were going to be very, very low for a very long time? Isn't that what he said? I don't know. I've got another article pulled up here from a mortgage company that I won't name. It says in 2024, it is expected that the Bank of Canada will cut rates by up to 2% and another 1% in 2025. This will result in lower payments for adjustable rate mortgage holders. TD Bank economists predict the policy rate can reach 2.25% by 2025 as inflation slows and economic growth decelerates. There's only one problem here, guys. You don't know that inflation is going to continue to slow, and you don't know that economic growth is going to continue to decelerate. Unless TD has, again, some magic crystal ball that I'm just not privy to, they don't know this for sure. So why do I sound so cynical? Well, first off, I think realtors have a duty of care, not just to their clients, but to the public. I think they need to be careful about the things they say, the predictions they make. Realtors like myself, we are not qualified in any capacity to offer long-term projections, market outlooks, make predictions, even to offer financial advice. As a matter of fact, right in the Standard Form 100 Agreement of Purchase and Sale in Ontario, there's a clause in there that states that nothing your agent tells you can be legally construed as financial advice. How about that? You go to your agent for financial advice, then they have you sign a document saying, please don't sue me because nothing I said is actually financial advice. So here's my best suggestion. Stop listening to realtors, at least when it comes to long-term predictions. Look, I am qualified to give you a good sense of what the market is doing today. I can advise you if now is a good or bad time to buy or sell, depending on your specific situation, what you're looking to accomplish. I can share market data. I can make a soft guess as to what I think we'll see happen in the next 30, 60, 90 days. And I'm happy to do all that. Call me or text me at 905-626-8826. But no realtor, no economist, no banker, no politician can tell you what's going to happen 12, 24, or 36 months from now. No one saw COVID coming. And I promise you, today, as you're listening to this episode, no one sees or knows the next economic boon or disaster waiting right around the corner for us. Nobody knows. But let me just conclude this segment with this, okay? An excerpt from an article from Global News. This is from back in October, okay? It reads, among the biggest new risks in the Bank of Canada's inflation forecast is the Israel-Hamas conflict. The Monetary Policy Report noted that the war has not affected global oil supplies, but added that if the conflict spread regionally, such disruption could force energy prices to rise in response. Exactly. This is my case in point. The Israel-Hamas conflict erupted virtually overnight, and it has the potential to destabilize oil prices in the Middle East, which could drive higher energy prices in Canada and elsewhere in the world, causing further inflation, causing a need for further interest rate hikes, causing a further decrease to housing prices. These things are like dominoes. They all have a chain effect. And this is just one example of something that nobody saw coming back in September. Nobody knew this conflict was about to erupt, especially at this scale.
The Fort Erie Podcast.
Coming up next week on the Fort Erie Podcast, I'm going to have two different guests, both representing different local nonprofits. My first guest for episode 75 will be local Fort Erie resident Gary Haas. And I know many of you know Gary and his crew, his entourage, let's call them, for all the work they do for COPE, one of our local food banks, constantly involved in different efforts, especially around the holidays, to make sure the shelves are stocked at COPE. One of those initiatives coming up in the month of December is going to be a chance to meet Frosty the Christmas horse. Gary's going to tell us all about that next week. And my second guest next week will actually be a repeat guest of the Fort Erie Podcast. I'll be speaking with Ann Waters of Salvation Army. Ann is looking for volunteers to assist with Salvation Army's annual Christmas Kettle campaign. She'll be telling us all about that. Now, Ann actually forwarded me a poster last week. The title of this poster is Greater Fort Erie Christmas Registration 2023. Let me just summarize. I'm going to share all this right now with you listeners in advance of speaking with Ann next week. Christmas is a tough time for a lot of people. That's no secret. But I think especially this year when so many of our local nonprofits are struggling to keep up with demand. So maybe you, your family, somebody you know, maybe you need help with, food around the holidays, toiletries, toys for the kids, give them a nice Christmas, clothing, those types of things. There's a few local organizations here in our town offering Christmas help. Now, you're going to have to contact these organizations individually to see how they may be able to help you or your family or your specific situation. But I'm going to run through this list. Now, as much as we are one town, this list is still kind of broken down into the different towns within our town, if we can call them that. Let's start with Fort Erie, specifically Fort Erie proper. The first mentioned on this list is St. Vincent de Paul on Jarvis Street. This Christmas help is available for households that are comprised of all members of your household are 18 or older. They're all adults. You call the St. Vincent de Paul hotline starting on November 17th, so coming up in just 3 days. The number is 905-394-0203. 905-394-0203. You can go get a pen and paper. I'll say it one more time. 905-394-0203. And you leave a message and you say in that message, I need Christmas help. That's the password. I need Christmas help. Leave that message. I need Christmas help. Also leave your name and your phone number. You have between November 17th and December 8th. Somebody will call you back. For households with children up to 17 living at home, instead of calling St. Vincent de Paul, you're going to call Salvation Army. The number is 905-871-1592, 905-871-1592. You call Tuesday or Thursday between 10 and 3. That's already underway right now. You can call right this moment. Well, maybe not right this moment. Finish listening to this episode of the Fort Erie Podcast and then call. Tuesday, Thursday, between 10 and 3 through to December 7th. But in this case, do not leave a message. If you don't reach somebody, just call back. You want to speak with somebody when you call Salvation Army. And lastly, for folks in Ridgeway, Crystal Beach, and Stevensville, your Christmas help is going to come from St. Vincent de Paul. You visit the St. Vincent de Paul Food Bank at St. George's Church. You have to go in person. That's 56 Ridgeway Road in Crystal Beach. Beach. You go Monday or Thursday between 10 and 12 between now and November 30th. Let them know you need Christmas help. This poster, I know that's a lot of details. I'm going to post this to my social media as well. So follow me on Facebook or wherever. Facebook's probably the best one. I'm at Buy with Brent everywhere though. And you can find a copy of this poster and get all those details. And please also don't forget, if I can give myself a plug, I am doing a fundraising initiative of my own. Many of you, regular listeners of the Fort Erie podcast, you already know this. I created a merchandise store for the Fort Erie podcast where I'm selling things like Fort Erie podcast t-shirts and hats and mugs and phone cases and notebooks and tank tops, and they're all branded. They got the Fort Erie podcast logo on them, and 100% of the proceeds from all of those merchandise sales is going to be donated to Strong Fort Erie Neighborhoods. And this campaign goes right through to Christmas Day. Strong Fort Erie Neighborhoods is another great community organization right here in our town, assisting folks in need. I've got about a dozen orders or so far through the merchandise store, but time in a sense is running out. We are coming up on Christmas Day. Access the Fort Erie Podcast merchandise store by visiting theforteriepodcast.com and click the merch link at the top of the page. Now, before we wrap up today, just a couple of quick reminders. Get your messages in on the Byrd Box, as always, 289-599-2973. As a matter of fact, the first person to call in, you heard this earlier during my chat with Arjun, the first person to call in and leave a message on the Byrd Box saying Crafted 1885 will win a $25 gift card to Crafted 1885, courtesy of Arjun Kalia. And don't count yourself out, by the way. This always happens with this type of contest or this type of giveaway. You listen to this and you go, oh, somebody else probably already called in. Somebody already beat me. Oh, this episode came out on Tuesday, but it's now Wednesday. And, I'm probably... No, this always happens. People count themselves out and don't even call. And it's usually the one person that calls like 6 days later that ends up actually winning the gift card. So just call 289-599-BYRD, B-Y-R-D. Leave a message. Say Crafted 1885. The first person to do that, I will call you back and I'll make sure you get hooked up with your gift card. Make sure you also follow Crafted 1885 on Facebook or Instagram, or maybe just stop in for one of their tasty specials. And I think that'll just about do it for today, folks. Thank you for listening, and I'll catch you next week on Tuesday for episode 75.
You've been listening to the Fort Erie Podcast with your host, Brent Jones. Never miss an episode. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, or visit theforteriepodcast.com.